Millionaire freezes in court when he sees his abandoned ex-maid with a 25-year-old judge who looks just like him. Hi, my beautiful family. This is your brother, Mr. Peter. I speak to you today with a heart full of love, but also with truth. Our channel is built on your strength, your love, and your support. Every story I write is written with tears, with passion, and with prayer for each one of you. But my family, I see the channel going down because many forget to like, many forget to comment. It hurts me because it feels like my hard work is left unseen. I ask you today, not just as a creator, but as your brother who truly loves you, please, whenever you watch, give your love back. A simple like, a simple comment keeps this family alive, keeps our light shining, and gives me the power to bring you more and more beautiful stories. May God bless every woman in this family with honor, with dignity, and with unshakable strength. May every man be blessed with wisdom and respect. May our children rise higher than mountains, and may every home be filled with endless love and peace. Amen. If your heart is true, right, present. If your love is real, right. I am with Mr. Peter. The Honorable Judge Anna Edward commanded respect before she even spoke, her presence filling the courtroom like morning light breaking through stained glass. Gary Benjamin had walked into courtroom 7 with the swagger of a man who'd never met a problem his money couldn't solve. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the polished marble, each step a declaration of the power he'd wielded for 30 years in the business world. His legal team flanked him like soldiers, their briefcases full of documents that would, he was certain, destroy William Asher once and for all. But then he saw her, the judge. His blood turned to ice water in his veins, and for the first time in his 57 years, Gary Benjamin felt the world tilt off its axis. The young woman behind the bench couldn't be more than 25, with skin the color of warm honey and eyes that held flecks of green. His mother's eyes, his eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a sophisticated bun, revealing the strong jawline that had stared back at him from mirrors his entire life. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Anna Edward presiding." Edward. The name hit him like a physical blow. His knees buckled slightly, and James Harrison, his lead attorney, caught his elbow. "You all right, Gary?" James whispered, but Gary couldn't respond. His throat had closed completely. Because there, in the gallery behind the prosecutor's table, sat a woman he hadn't seen in 25 years. Angela Edward. She was older now, silver threading through her once jet-black hair, but she sat with the same quiet dignity that had first captured his attention all those years ago. She wore a simple navy suit, her hands folded in her lap, and she was watching him with eyes that held neither hatred nor forgiveness, just a steady, unwavering gaze that seemed to see straight through to his soul. "Please be seated," Judge Anna Edward said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that couldn't be taught. It had to be earned, forged in fires that most people never had to walk through. Gary collapsed into his chair more than sat, his mind racing. The math was simple, terrible, and undeniable. 25 years ago. Angela. The way this judge moved her hands when she spoke, exactly like he did. The slight tilt of her head when she listened, his mother's gesture passed down through generations. "We're here today for the case of Benjamin Enterprises versus Asher Industries," Judge Edward began, shuffling through papers with elegant fingers. "A matter of alleged corporate fraud spanning 15 years. Mr. Harrison, are you ready to proceed for the plaintiff?" James stood, but Gary grabbed his wrist. "I need a moment," he whispered urgently. Judge Edward's eyes, those impossibly familiar eyes, turned to him. "Is there a problem, Mr. Benjamin?" Their eyes met for the first time. Gary searched her face for any sign of recognition, any hint that she knew who he was to her. But there was nothing. Just professional courtesy and a hint of impatience. "No, Your Honor," James answered for him. "We're ready to proceed." As James began outlining their case, Gary's mind drifted to that summer 25 years ago. Angela had been 30 then, hired as his housekeeper when his regular staff had quit. She was different from the others, educated, articulate, working menial jobs to pay for her mother's cancer treatment. She'd dust his library and quote the philosophers whose books lined the shelves. She'd organize his kitchen while humming Billie Holiday, her voice like warm honey over broken glass. He'd been 32, supposedly engaged to Sophia Asher, a business arrangement masquerading as romance. His father had arranged it all before his death, a merger of families that would create a corporate empire. But Angela had been real. She'd looked at him and seen Gary, not Benjamin Enterprises. She'd challenged him, laughed at his pretensions, made him feel human in a world of contracts and calculations. Their affair had lasted 2 years. 2 years of stolen moments, of her sneaking up to his bedroom after the other staff had left, of weekend trips to places where no one knew their names. He'd loved her, God help him. He'd loved her in a way that had terrified him. Because loving Angela meant choosing her over everything his father had built, everything he'd been raised to protect. "Mr. Benjamin," Judge Edwards' voice cut through his reverie, "your attorney has asked for a preliminary review of evidence. Do you have the documents present?" He looked up at her, at his daughter, though she didn't know it, and his voice cracked. "Yes, Your Honor." As James presented their evidence, Gary stole glances at Angela. She sat perfectly still, but he could see the slight tremor in her hands. She knew. Of course she knew. This was why she was here, watching the daughter she'd raised alone sit in judgment of the man who'd thrown them away. The memory of that last day crashed over him. William Asher had discovered the affair, had threatened to destroy everything if Gary didn't end it immediately. But it hadn't been enough to just end it. William had demanded humiliation, insurance that Angela would never return. So Gary had done the unthinkable. He'd accused her of theft, had her escorted from his home by security, had given her a severance check with the understanding that she'd never contact him again. She'd looked at him with such bewilderment, such hurt. "Gary, what are you doing? Talk to me. Whatever's happened, we can—" "There's nothing to discuss," he'd said, ice in his voice while his heart shattered. "The jewelry is missing. I have to protect myself." "You know I would never—" "I don't know anything about you," he'd lied, each word a knife in his own chest. "Take the check and go." She'd left with her dignity intact, her head high, never begging, never pleading. It was only later, after Sophia had shown him the pregnancy test she'd found in Angela's bathroom trash, that he'd realized what he'd truly done. But by then, Angela had vanished. His private investigators couldn't find her, or perhaps they'd been paid by William not to find her. He'd never been sure. Now, 25 years later, the consequences of his cowardice sat before him in black robes, holding a gavel that would determine his future. "Your Honor," the opposing counsel, a sharp-faced woman named Catherine Wyatt, stood. "We'd like to present evidence that Mr. Benjamin has a history of false accusations for personal gain." Gary's blood ran cold. "That's inflammatory and irrelevant," James objected. Judge Edward considered this. "I'll allow you to make your argument for relevance, Ms. Wyatt, but tread carefully." Catherine smiled, and it was then that Gary noticed her exchange a quick glance with Angela. They knew each other. This wasn't coincidence. This was orchestration, a symphony of justice, 25 years in the making. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Benjamin falsely accused a former employee of theft to avoid personal complications. This pattern of behavior speaks directly to his credibility in the current fraud accusations." "Your Honor, that alleged incident has no bearing," James began. "I'll determine what has bearing in my courtroom, Mr. Harrison," Judge Edwards said coolly. Her eyes found Gary again, and for just a moment he thought he saw something flicker there. Not recognition, but curiosity. "Ms. Wyatt, you may present your evidence tomorrow. Court is adjourned until 9 a.m. The gavel came down with finality. As people began filing out, Gary remained frozen in his chair. Angela rose slowly from her seat in the gallery, and for one heart-stopping moment, their eyes met across the courtroom. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Then she turned and walked to the front of the courtroom, where Judge Edward was gathering her papers. He watched them embrace, mother and daughter, though no one else in the courtroom knew it. Angela whispered something in Anna's ear, and the judge's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing surprise, then something that might have been pain. Anna's eyes found his across the courtroom, and this time there was something new in them. A dawning understanding, perhaps, or maybe just the beginning of questions she'd never thought to ask. As Gary finally stood on unsteady legs, James grabbed his arm. "What the hell was that about, Gary? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Not a ghost," Gary murmured, watching Angela and Anna leave through the judge's private exit. "Something much worse. The truth." That night, Gary stood in his empty mansion. Sophia had taken half of everything in the divorce, but the loneliness had been there long before she left. He poured himself a scotch and stared at the space on the wall where Angela's picture should have been, would have been, if he'd been a different man. Tomorrow he would face them again. Tomorrow the truth would begin to unravel. And tomorrow his daughter would sit in judgment of him, never knowing that the blood running through her veins was half his, that her brilliant legal mind was his mother's gift passed down through him, that her strength was all Angela, but her stubborn jaw was pure Benjamin. The scotch burned, but not as much as the knowledge that he'd thrown away the only real thing he'd ever had for an empire that was now crumbling anyway. William Asher had played a long game, and Gary was only now beginning to understand that he'd lost it 25 years ago, the day he'd chosen money over love, legacy over life, fear over courage. Somewhere across the city, Angela was probably telling Anna the truth. And tomorrow, when Judge Anna Edward looked at him, she would see not just a plaintiff, but the father who had denied her existence before she'd even drawn her first breath. Chapter 2. The Buried Past. Angela Edward had learned long ago that the most powerful thing a woman could do was refuse to break when the world demanded her shattering. She stood at her bedroom window now, watching the rain streak down the glass, her phone heavy in her hand. Anna would call soon. Her brilliant, beautiful daughter would call with questions that had been 25 years in the coming, and Angela would have to find words for a story she'd buried so deep that sometimes even she forgot it was real. But seeing Gary in that courtroom today, older, grayer, but still carrying himself like he owned the world, had brought it all flooding back with such force that she'd had to grip the gallery railing to keep from gasping. 25 years ago, she'd been 30 years old and drowning. Her mother, Grace, was dying of pancreatic cancer, and the medical bills had devoured every penny of her savings, her teaching salary, even the small inheritance her father had left. She'd taken the housekeeping job at the Benjamin estate because it paid 3 times what she could make anywhere else, and because the agency had promised that Gary Benjamin was rarely home. That first day, she'd walked into his mansion with her head high and her pride intact. She had a master's degree in literature, had been 3 years into her PhD when her mother got sick. But she'd cleaned his floors and dusted his shelves without complaint, because love demanded sacrifice, and her mother deserved every sacrifice she could make. Gary had come home early that first week, finding her in his library, running her fingers along the spines of first editions she'd only dreamed of touching. "You can read them, you know," he'd said from the doorway, making her jump. She'd turned, expecting to see arrogance, perhaps even accusation. Instead, she'd found curiosity in those green eyes, and something else, loneliness maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. "I couldn't," she'd said. "They're too valuable." "Books are meant to be read," he'd replied, pulling down a leather-bound copy of James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. Otherwise they're just decorative objects, and I have enough of those. That had been the beginning. He'd started coming home earlier, always finding her in the library during her breaks. They'd discuss literature, philosophy, music. He'd been different than she'd expected, wounded somehow, trapped in a life that didn't quite fit him, like a song played in the wrong key. "Why are you here?" he'd asked her one evening, 3 months after she'd started. "You're brilliant. You should be teaching at a university, not cleaning your house?" She'd finished for him, but gently. "My mother is sick. Love makes us do things we never imagined." He'd looked at her then with such intensity that she'd felt it in her bones. "I wouldn't know," he'd said quietly. "I've never loved anyone that much." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," she'd told him, and meant it. The first kiss had happened in that library, surrounded by all those stories of love and loss. It had been soft, hesitant, a question more than a statement. She'd known it was wrong. He was engaged, she was his employee. But there had been something so genuinely desperate in the way he'd held her, like a drowning man finding shore. Their affair had been 2 years of beauty and delusion. He'd set her mother up with the best oncologists in the city, had paid for experimental treatments that gave them 6 more months than anyone had predicted. He'd bought Angela a small apartment under a shell company's name, somewhere they could be together without the weight of his last name or her employment hanging over them. In that apartment, he'd been just Gary, not the Benjamin heir, not the corporate prince, just a man who laughed at her terrible cooking, who read poetry to her in bed, who confessed his fears about becoming his father, cold, calculating, dead inside from decades of choosing profit over people. "I won't become him," he'd promise her in the dark. "When the time is right, I'll choose us. I'll choose love." She'd believed him. God help her. She'd believed every word. The pregnancy had been a shock, but not unwelcome. She'd been 32 by then, had started to wonder if motherhood would pass her by. When she'd seen those 2 pink lines, her first thought hadn't been fear, but joy. A baby, their baby, a living testament to the fact that their love had been real, whatever came next. She'd planned to tell him that night, had bought a special dinner, had rehearsed the words a dozen times, but he'd come to the apartment with eyes like a hunted animal, with news that William Asher had discovered their relationship. "We have to be careful," he'd said, pacing her small living room. "William is threatening to pull out of the merger, to destroy everything. I just need time to figure this out." "Gary," she'd started, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. "There's something—" But then his phone had rung. Sophia. And he'd answered it, had promised he'd be home soon, had kissed Angela's forehead like she was already a ghost. 3 days later, security had arrived at the mansion while she was working. Gary had stood there, cold as winter, accusing her of stealing his mother's jewelry. She'd been so shocked she couldn't even cry, couldn't even defend herself. She'd just stared at him, searching for the man who'd read her Neruda, who'd promised her everything. "Take the severance," he'd said, not meeting her eyes. "Don't come back." She'd taken the check, $50,000, enough to cover her mother's final expenses and start over, and left with her dignity intact. It wasn't until she was in her car that she'd realized she was still wearing the small gold necklace he'd given her, hidden under her uniform. She'd ripped it off and thrown it out the window, watching it disappear into the grass. Her mother had died 2 weeks later, never knowing about the pregnancy, never knowing about the heartbreak. Angela had held her hand at the end, had sung her the spirituals she'd loved, had promised her she'd be okay. After the funeral, she'd tried once to tell Gary about the baby, had gone to his office building, had waited in the lobby for hours. But Sophia had intercepted her, had smiled that cold smile and said, "He knows about your condition, dear. The money he gave you should more than cover it. Don't embarrass yourself further." That's when Angela understood. They thought she would terminate the pregnancy. They thought $50,000 was the price of making a problem disappear. She'd walked out of that building and never looked back, had moved to the other side of the city, had taken work as a court reporter, learning shorthand at night while her belly grew, had given birth to Anna alone, except for the nurse who held her hand when the pain got too bad. Anna had come out perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and those green eyes that were all Benjamin. Angela had looked at her daughter and made a promise. You will never know rejection. You will never question your worth. You will be so loved, so accomplished, that his absence will be just a footnote in your story, not the headline. And she'd kept that promise, had worked 3 jobs to pay for Anna's private school, had taught her to read at 3, to question everything at 5, to stand tall at 7 when kids asked about her father. He died before you were born, Angela would say, and in a way, it was true. The Gary she'd loved had died the day he'd chosen his empire over their family. Anna had been brilliant from the start, not just smart, brilliant. She'd graduated high school at 16, college at 19, law school at 22, the youngest person to pass the bar in state history, and when the governor had appointed her as a judge at 24, Angela had cried for hours, not from sadness, but from the pure, fierce joy of watching her daughter become everything Gary Benjamin could never be: honorable, just, unafraid. The phone rang, pulling Angela from her memories. Anna's name lit up the screen. "Mom!" Anna's voice was steady, but Angela could hear the storm underneath. "We need to talk." "I know, baby. You were there today, in the gallery, watching him." Angela closed her eyes. "Yes. He's my father, isn't he? Gary Benjamin is my father." The words hung between them, 25 years of carefully constructed fiction, crumbling in an instant. "Yes," Angela whispered. There was silence on the other end, and Angela could picture her daughter, brilliant, beautiful Anna, processing this information like the judge she was, examining evidence, building a case. "You told me he was dead." "He was, to us." "That's not the same thing, Mom." "Isn't it?" Angela asked, surprised by the steel in her own voice. "A man who denies your existence before you're even born. What is that but a kind of death? I need to recuse myself from the case." "No." The word came out sharper than Angela intended. "No, you don't." "Mom, it's a conflict of interest." "Is it? You didn't know who he was. You have no relationship with him. You owe him nothing." Angela took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "Anna, baby, you've worked your whole life to sit on that bench. You've earned the right to judge fairly, impartially. Don't you dare give that up because of him. This is about revenge for you, isn't it?" Angela considered the question. Was it revenge? To watch the man who'd discarded them like trash now have to look up at their daughter, to see what he'd missed, what he'd thrown away? "No," she said finally. "It's about justice. There's a difference. Mom, there are things about this case. William Asher's fraud goes back decades, and there's something about a theft accusation from 25 years ago." "That was me," Angela said quietly. "He accused me of theft to get rid of me when William Asher discovered our relationship." The silence stretched so long, Angela wondered if the call had dropped. "He falsely accused you of a crime." Anna's voice had changed, hardened into something Angela recognized, the voice she used in court when someone had lied to her. "Yes." "And you were pregnant with me?" He didn't know that part. I never got the chance to tell him. But Sophia knew. His wife knew, and told you he knew. Angela's breath caught. "How did you—" "She's on the witness list, Mom. She and Gary have been divorced for 15 years, and she's testifying against him. Catherine Wyatt sent me her deposition. She admits to a lot of things." Angela sank onto her bed. "I didn't know that." "Did you plan this? Did you know the case would come to my court?" "No, baby. I found out this morning, same as you. But when I did, Angela paused, searching for honesty. When I did, I had to be there. I had to see his face when he realized who you are. And did he realize? Oh yes, he knew the moment he saw you. You have his mother's eyes, his jawline. He knew, and it terrified him. Anna made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. What am I supposed to do with this, Mum? How am I supposed to sit there tomorrow and pretend I don't know? You do what you've always done, Angela said firmly. You pursue justice. You follow the law. You be the judge you are, not the daughter he never wanted. Maybe I should talk to him. No. Angela's voice was fierce now. Don't you dare give him that. He had 25 years to find you, to find us. 25 years, Anna. Your first steps, your first words, your graduation, your appointment to the bench. He missed it all by choice. Don't hand him absolution now, just because he's facing consequences. You hate him. Angela thought about that. Number hate would mean he still has power over me. I nothing him. He's a blank space where a man should have been. But you, my beautiful girl, you filled all those spaces with light. You became everything he couldn't be. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Anna, remember that tomorrow you're not sitting in judgment as his daughter. You're sitting as Judge Edward, appointed to that bench because of your brilliance, your integrity, your justice. That has nothing to do with him and everything to do with you. After they hung up, Angela returned to the window. The rain had stopped, and stars were beginning to appear in the clear night sky. Somewhere across the city, Gary Benjamin was probably pacing his empty mansion, realizing that his past had finally caught up with him in the form of a daughter who held his future in her hands. Angela had told Anna it wasn't about revenge, and mostly that was true. But there was something poetic about it, wasn't there? Gary had chosen his legacy over love, and now his legacy would be decided by the love he'd rejected. She thought about the young woman she'd been, crying in that parking lot with his gold necklace in her hand, pregnant and alone and terrified. If she could tell that woman that her daughter would one day sit in judgment over Gary Benjamin, that she would become the youngest judge in state history, that she would embody justice itself, would that woman have believed it? Angela smiled, a real smile for the first time all day. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more pain, more truth. But tonight she would sleep peacefully, knowing that she had raised a daughter who could face the man who denied her and deliver justice without flinching. That wasn't revenge. That was redemption. Chapter 3. The Brilliant Rise. Anna Edward had always known she was different, but she'd never understood that difference was her mother's greatest gift until now. She sat in her chambers at midnight, legal briefs scattered across her desk, but her eyes were fixed on a photograph from her law school graduation. Her mother stood beside her, radiant with pride, and Anna could see now what she'd missed then. The fierce protectiveness in Angela's eyes, the way she held Anna's hand like she was anchoring her to the earth, keeping her from floating away on the winds of her own brilliance. The knock on her door was soft, but insistent. "Come in," Anna called, expecting her clerk. Instead, Catherine Wyatt entered, the prosecutor in Gary Benjamin's case, carrying a box that looked like it had been unearthed from someone's attic. "Your Honor, I apologize for the late hour, but there's something you need to see before tomorrow's proceedings." Anna straightened. "Ms. Wyatt, any evidence should be submitted through proper channels. This isn't about the current case. It's about your mother." Catherine set the box on Anna's desk. "And about why she's the strongest woman I've ever known." Anna's hand hovered over the box. "You know my mother? She saved my life once. Not dramatically, not with heroics, with tutoring." Catherine smiled at the memory. 20 years ago, I was a single mother trying to get through law school. Your mother was working 3 jobs, raising you alone, and she still found time to tutor me in legal writing for free because she saw me struggling in the library one night." Anna's throat tightened. That sounded exactly like her mother. "She never told me about you. She was protecting you. From him, from the truth, from anything that might dim your light." Catherine gestured to the box. "These are public records, newspaper clippings, things I gathered over the years when I realized who you were. Your story, Anna, the one your mother never told you." After Catherine left, Anna opened the box with trembling fingers. The first item was a newspaper clipping from 23 years ago. "Prodigy child, 2, reads at 5th grade level." There was a grainy photo of her, tiny and serious, holding a book bigger than her torso. But it was the background that made Anna's breath catch. Their first apartment, shabby and small, toys clearly from second-hand stores, but everything immaculate, organized, loved. She pulled out more clippings. "Local girl 6, wins national mathematics competition. Youngest student ever admitted to Preston Academy on full scholarship. Teen genius graduates high school at 16. But interspersed with these achievements were other documents. Pay stubs showing her mother working as a court reporter by day, a hotel cleaner at night, a weekend tutor. Medical bills marked "paid" for Anna's childhood asthma, with amounts that made Anna's stomach clench. A teacher's note. Anna asked why she doesn't have a father like other kids. I told her some families are different, but she said her mom is worth 2 parents anyway. Anna laughed through her tears at that one. She'd been 7, and already understanding that Angela Edward was extraordinary. There was a college recommendation letter from a Professor Michael Chen that stopped Anna cold. "In 30 years of teaching, I have never encountered a student like Anna Edward. But perhaps more remarkably, I have never encountered a parent like Angela Edward." She attended every single one of Anna's lectures, sitting in the back, never speaking, just watching her daughter soar. When I asked her about it, she said, "Professor, I'm learning too. My daughter is teaching me that anything is possible. This young woman hasn't just raised a genius, she's raised a human being with empathy, integrity, and a fierce sense of justice. That doesn't come from IQ, that comes from love." Anna had never known her mother attended her lectures. Angela had always said she was working, and Anna had believed her. But of course, she'd been there. Angela had always been there, invisible but present, a guardian angel in a court reporter's suit. The next document was a transcript from a city council meeting when Anna was 17. Her mother had stood up during public comment to advocate for funding for a legal aid clinic. But it was what she'd said that made Anna's hands shake. "You want to know why this matters? Because 20 years ago, I was falsely accused of a crime. I had no money for a lawyer, no way to fight back. I lost everything, my job, my reputation, my future. But I survived, and I raised a daughter who just got accepted to Harvard Law School at 17 years old. She's going to be a judge someday, mark my words, and when she is, she's going to remember that justice isn't just for those who can afford it. It's for everyone. That's why we need this clinic." Anna had gotten into Harvard that same week. Her mother had cried, had held her, and said it was everything she'd dreamed of. But Anna understood now that it hadn't been about Harvard. It had been about justice, about raising a daughter who could right the wrongs Angela had suffered. A financial aid document from Harvard made Anna gasp. Her mother had listed assets, $3,000 in savings. That was it. For all those years of working 3 jobs, Angela had saved almost nothing, had poured everything into Anna's education, her health, her future. But under the section for additional circumstances, Angela had written, "My daughter does not know the extent of our financial situation. She believes her father left us life insurance. There was no insurance, no father who died honorably. There was only a man who chose his wealth over his child." I have protected her from this truth because she deserves to build her identity on her strengths, not his absence. I am requesting aid not for myself, but so my daughter can become the woman she's meant to be without the burden of my struggles. Harvard had given Anna a full scholarship. The last item in the box was a letter sealed with "For Anna" written on it in her mother's handwriting. Inside was a date, to be opened only if you ever learn the truth. Anna broke the seal with shaking fingers. My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, then you know. You know about Gary, about the lies I told, about the father you never had. I imagine you're angry, and you have every right to be. But let me tell you what I know, what I've always known. You are not his daughter. You are mine. Every achievement, every success, every moment of brilliance, that's you, baby. Not his DNA, not his legacy. You. I didn't tell you the truth because I watched him choose money over love, reputation over reality. I couldn't let you grow up knowing that someone who should have loved you most chose not to know you at all. I couldn't let his cowardice become your burden. You became a judge because you believe in justice. That belief didn't come from him. It came from watching me fight for every opportunity, from seeing how hard people work just to survive, from understanding that the law should protect everyone, not just the wealthy. When you were 5, you asked me why you didn't have a daddy. I told you he died, and you said, "That's okay, Mama. You love me enough for 2 people, and baby, I have. I've loved you with the force of a hurricane, with the depth of the ocean, with the intensity of 1,000 suns. Now you sit in judgment, and the universe has a sense of humor because the man who denied you stands before you seeking justice. Don't recuse yourself. Don't give him that power. Judge him as you would any man, fairly, impartially, honestly. That's all I've ever wanted for you, to be better than both of us. You are my greatest achievement, Anna, not because of your degrees or your title, but because you are good, you are kind, you are just. Don't let his presence in that courtroom change who you are. He's just a plaintiff. You are a judge. You are my daughter. You are everything. All my love, Mom. Anna was sobbing now, her judicial composure completely shattered. She thought about her mother, 32 and pregnant, being escorted from Gary's mansion like a criminal. She thought about Angela giving birth alone, raising a baby on 3 hours of sleep and pure determination. She thought about every sacrifice, every late night, every job taken and dream deferred, so that Anna could stand where she stood now. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Can't sleep. Making your favorite. Chamomile tea with honey. Come home. Anna grabbed her coat and drove through the empty streets to the modest townhouse her mother had finally been able to buy 5 years ago. Angela was waiting on the porch, 2 steaming mugs in hand, looking exactly like what she was, a woman who had conquered the world through love alone. You saw the box, Angela said. It wasn't a question. Why didn't you tell me? About the lectures, the money, any of it? Angela handed her the tea. Because that was my journey, baby. Yours was to fly. Mine was to build the runway. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Anna asked, how did you do it? How did you raise me alone, work those jobs, never complain? Angela smiled, that fierce, beautiful smile that had been Anna's North Star her whole life. Every time it got hard, I looked at you. You were so brilliant, so special. And I thought, the world needs her. The world needs someone who understands struggle but isn't broken by it, who knows injustice but fights with law, not lawlessness. So I kept going. He's going to lose tomorrow, Anna said quietly. The evidence is overwhelming. William Asher destroyed him systematically for 20 years. Good, Angela said simply. But that's not enough, is it? His losing? Angela turned to her daughter. What would be enough? Money? An apology? Him suddenly wanting to be your father? She shook her head. Baby, he made his choice 25 years ago. We made ours. We chose to rise. We chose to become extraordinary. That's our revenge, that we didn't need him at all. Anna thought about the man she'd seen in court, how his hands had trembled, how he'd looked at her like she was both salvation and damnation. "He recognized me immediately." "Of course he did. You look just like his mother, but you have my spirit." That must have been quite a shock. "Mom, in the files, there's evidence that Sophia and William orchestrated everything. The false theft charges, hiding your pregnancy from him, even sabotaging his business afterward. He was a coward, but he was also manipulated." Angela's face hardened. "Don't you dare feel sorry for him. A real man would have fought for us. A real father would have searched for you. He took the easy way out and we took the hard way up." Anna nodded, understanding. Tomorrow she would sit in judgment. She would listen to evidence, apply the law, deliver justice. She would be Judge Anna Edward, youngest in state history, brilliant and impartial. But tonight, she was just Anna, daughter of Angela, heir to a legacy of strength that had nothing to do with the Benjamin name and everything to do with the Edward women who had refused to be broken. "I love you, Mom," she said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "I love you too, baby. Always have, always will. Enough for two people, remember?" Anna smiled through her tears. More than enough. Enough for the whole world. Tomorrow would bring revelations, confrontations, justice. But tonight, two women sat on a porch, drinking tea, celebrating the triumph of love over abandonment, of perseverance over privilege. And somewhere across the city, Gary Benjamin sat alone, finally understanding that the empire he'd protected by sacrificing love had been built on sand, while Angela had built a monument to motherhood that would stand forever in the form of Judge Anna Edward. Chapter 4. Recusal denied. The morning arrived wrapped in thunder, as if the heavens themselves knew that truth and lies were about to collide in courtroom 7. Gary Benjamin hadn't slept. He'd spent the night staring at his laptop, searching for any trace of Anna Edward online, devouring every article, every photo, every mention of the daughter he'd never known existed. The youngest bar exam passer in state history. The prodigy who'd graduated law school at 22. The judge who'd become legendary for her fairness, her brilliance, her inability to be swayed by wealth or power. His daughter. The child Angela had carried alone, raised alone, made extraordinary alone. James Harrison found him like that, still in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by printed articles. "Gary, we need to talk strategy." He stopped, seeing the papers. "What is all this?" "She's my daughter," Gary said, his voice hoarse. "Judge Edward, she's my daughter." James went very still. "That's impossible. 25 years ago, I had an affair with my housekeeper, Angela Edward. I fired her when William found out, accused her of theft to keep her away. She was pregnant. I never knew." James sank into a chair. "Jesus Christ, Gary, we need to file for recusal immediately." No, Gary, this is the very definition of conflict of interest. If we reveal this, I'll have to admit to falsely accusing Angela of theft. That's a crime, James, and it proves William's pattern of behavior claims." Gary laughed bitterly. "I'm trapped in my own lies." "Then we hint at it, suggest impropriety without stating, 'You want me to destroy my daughter's career to save myself?'" Gary's voice cracked. "She's worked her entire life for that bench. She's the youngest judge in state history. I've already taken everything from her. Her father, her birthright, her family name. I won't take her career too." James stared at him. "When did you grow a conscience?" "About 25 years too late." They arrived at court to find the media presence had tripled. Someone had leaked that there was more to this case than corporate fraud, that secrets were about to be exposed that would rock the business world. In the courtroom, Angela sat in the same spot in the gallery, wearing a deep purple dress that reminded Gary painfully of one she'd worn to a clandestine dinner so many years ago. Their eyes met for a moment, and he saw something there, not forgiveness, Never that, but perhaps a grim satisfaction. All rise. Judge Anna Edward entered, and Gary studied her openly now, cataloguing every familiar feature. His mother's eyes, yes, but Angela's grace. His stubborn jaw, but Angela's smile. The way she held her pen, exactly like he did, genetic memory asserting itself despite absence. "Before we begin," Judge Edward said, her voice carrying that same authority that made grown attorneys tremble, "I understand there may be emotion." James stood slowly. "Your Honor, the defense would like to request, that is, we believe there may be grounds for—" "Spit it out, Mr. Harrison," Anna said. And God, she sounded just like his mother when she'd lost patience with incompetence. "We're concerned about potential bias, Your Honor." The courtroom went silent. Anna's eyes, his mother's eyes, his eyes, fixed on James with laser intensity. "On what grounds?" "We believe, that is, Mr. Benjamin believes there may be some connection between yourself and parties involved in this case." Anna leaned back, and Gary could see Angela tense in the gallery. "Mr. Harrison, are you suggesting I have some secret relationship with your client or the defendant that would prevent me from judging fairly?" "Not exactly, Your Honor." "Then what exactly are you suggesting?" Her voice could have frozen fire. "Because if you're making accusations about my integrity without evidence, we're going to have a different conversation about contempt of court." Gary stood. "Your Honor, may I?" Anna's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment, father and daughter looked at each other across 25 years of absence. "Mr. Benjamin, you're not an attorney. Your counsel speaks for you." "Please, Your Honor. Just one moment." She nodded slowly. Gary took a breath. "We withdraw any suggestion of bias. I have complete faith in Your Honor's ability to judge this case fairly and impartially. Mr. Harrison was overzealous in his concern for my interests." Anna studied him for a long moment. "Very well. Motion for recusal is denied, as no proper grounds have been established. Ms. Wyatt, please proceed with your case." Catherine Wyatt stood with a smile that promised devastation. "Your Honor, we'd like to call our first witness, Sophia Asher Benjamin." Gary's ex-wife entered the courtroom like she was walking a runway, all designer clothes and practiced poise. But Gary could see the cracks, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she avoided looking at him. 15 years of marriage, and it had all been built on a foundation of lies. "Mrs. Asher Benjamin," Catherine began. "Ms. Asher," Sophia corrected. "I took back my maiden name after the divorce." "Ms. Asher, you were married to Gary Benjamin for 15 years. "Yes." "And that marriage ended in divorce 10 years ago." "Yes." "Can you tell the court about the circumstances that led to your marriage?" Sophia's eyes flickered to Gary. "My father, William Asher, arranged it. A merger between families, he called it. Gary needed our connections, and my father wanted the Benjamin name." "Were you aware that Mr. Benjamin was involved with someone else at the time of your engagement?" "I became aware of it, yes." "Can you tell us about that?" Sophia straightened. "Her name was Angela. She was his housekeeper. They'd been having an affair for 2 years. Anna's face remained impassive, but Gary saw her pen still on the page. "What happened when this affair was discovered?" "My father was furious. He threatened to destroy Gary unless he ended it immediately, and he did more than end it. He accused her of theft to ensure she could never come back." "Did she steal anything?" "Number my father and I, we planted my jewelry in her room. Gary knew it was planted, but he went along with it." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Angela remained still as stone in the gallery. "Ms. Asher, what happened to Angela after she was fired?" "She disappeared, but not before I intercepted her at Gary's office building. She was trying to tell him something, seemed desperate. I told her he knew about her pregnancy and didn't care." Anna's pen dropped. Catherine picked it up smoothly, as if this was all choreographed. She was pregnant? Yes. I'd found a pregnancy test in her bathroom trash. I told Gary after she was gone and he said it was better this way, said the child would have complicated everything. That was a lie. Gary wanted to scream it, but he couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He'd never said that. He'd been devastated, had tried to find Angela, but Sophia had told him she'd left the state, had started a new life. Ms. Asher, why are you testifying against your father now? Sophia's composure finally cracked. Because I spent 25 years living with what we did. We destroyed an innocent woman because she dared to love above her station. We separated a father from his child because it was inconvenient. And my father has spent the last 20 years destroying Gary's business bit by bit as punishment for corrupting me with his affairs, even though the affair happened before our marriage. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the destruction. That woman, Angela, she deserved better. Her child deserved better. No further questions. James stood for cross-examination, but Gary grabbed his arm. Don't, he whispered. Leave it. Gary, I have to... No, she told the truth. Leave it. Judge Anna Edward called for a recess. As people filed out, Gary saw her retreat to her chambers, saw Angela follow. He wanted to follow too, wanted to burst in and explain, apologize, beg for something he didn't even have words for. Instead, he stood in the hallway watching Catherine Wyatt approach. She's remarkable, isn't she? Catherine said. Your daughter. Gary's throat closed. You know? I've known Angela for 20 years. She tutored me through law school while working 3 jobs to raise Anna alone. Did you know Anna graduated high school at 16, college at 19, that she wrote her law school thesis on justice for the falsely accused? Each fact was a knife between his ribs. She doesn't need you, Catherine continued. Neither of them do. They built something beautiful out of the ashes you left behind. But now you get to watch what you missed. You get to see the incredible woman your daughter became without you. And you get to know that every brilliant ruling she makes, every life she changes, every bit of justice she delivers, that's Angela's victory, not yours. She walked away, leaving Gary alone in the hallway of a courthouse where his daughter sat in judgment, where his past had come to collect its debts, where 25 years of cowardice had led him to this moment, successful, wealthy, and utterly, completely alone. When court reconvened, Anna returned, composed, but changed. There was something in her eyes now, a depth of understanding that hadn't been there before. We'll continue with testimony tomorrow, she said, but I want to make something clear to both parties. This court deals in truth and justice. Nothing less will be tolerated. The past has a way of surfacing, gentlemen, and when it does, we must face it with courage, not cowardice. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality, and as Gary watched his daughter leave the bench, he understood that she wasn't just talking about the case. She was talking about him, about Angela, about the truth that had finally come to light in the last place he'd ever expected, a courtroom where justice wore his daughter's face. Chapter 5. Mother's Revelation. Truth has a way of burning through carefully constructed walls like acid through paper, leaving nothing but raw, exposed reality in its wake. Anna Edward sat in her chambers at 2 a.m., the court transcript spread before her, Sophia Asher's testimony playing on repeat in her mind. Her mother hadn't just been wronged, she'd been systematically destroyed by people who saw her as disposable, a problem to be eliminated rather than a person to be valued. The knock on her door was soft. Angela entered without waiting for permission, the way only mothers can, carrying 2 cups of coffee and the weight of 25 years of secrets. You should be home sleeping, Angela said, setting a cup in front of her daughter. So should you. Anna looked up at her mother, seeing her differently now, not just as the woman who'd raised her, but as the woman who'd loved and lost so profoundly that she'd rebuilt herself from atoms up. You loved him. It wasn't a question, but Angela nodded anyway. I did. God help me, I did. Tell me, all of it. No more protection, no more shields. I need to know everything. Angela sat down, and for the first time in Anna's life, she saw her mother look vulnerable. You have to understand, baby, I was different then. Younger, yes, but also hopeful. I believed that love could transcend circumstances, that if two people truly cared for each other, they could overcome anything. And Gary Benjamin taught you otherwise. No, Angela said softly. Gary Benjamin taught me that some people are too weak for love. Love requires courage, and he was a coward. But you know what? His cowardice gave me you, and you gave me purpose. So in the end, I won. How can you say you won? He destroyed your life. Angela reached across the desk, taking her daughter's hands. No, baby, he destroyed the life I thought I wanted. But look what I built instead. I raised a judge. I found my calling as a court reporter, helping ensure justice was recorded accurately. I made friends like Catherine who became family. I learned that I was stronger than I ever imagined. That's not destruction, that's transformation. But the poverty, the struggle, working 3 jobs, every sacrifice was worth it, every single one. Because look at you. Angela's eyes shone with tears. You sit on that bench with integrity he could never dream of. You deliver justice with compassion he never learned. You are everything he could have been if he'd chosen love over fear. Anna pulled her hands away. I have to recuse myself, now that I know. Now that you know what? That your father is a coward. That doesn't change your ability to judge this case fairly. Mom, he's my biological father. That's the very definition of conflict of interest. Angela leaned back, studying her daughter with those eyes that had seen everything and survived it all. Is it? What interest do you have in him? What relationship? What connection beyond shared DNA? You owe him nothing, Anna, not even acknowledgement. The law says a judge must recuse herself if she cannot be impartial. Can you be impartial? Anna thought about it, really thought about it. Did she hate Gary Benjamin? You had to care about someone to hate them. Did she love him? How could you love a stranger? What she felt was nothing, a blank space where emotion should be. I can be impartial, she said finally. He's just a plaintiff to me. Then stay on the case. Show him what he missed. Show them all that Angela Edwards' daughter cannot be moved by money, by connection, by anything except the truth. What if he tries to claim me? What if he suddenly wants to be my father? Angela's laugh was sharp as winter wind. 25 years too late for that. You're not a child he can buy with gifts or manipulate with guilt. You're Judge Anna Edward. You belong to no one but yourself. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Anna asked, Did you ever think about telling me the truth? Every day. But then I'd watch you flourish without the weight of his rejection, and I'd keep quiet. Maybe that was selfish. No, Anna said firmly. It was love. You protected me so I could become who I am, not who his absence might have made me. Catherine gave you the box. Yes. And I understand now why you're the strongest person I know. You didn't just survive, Mom. You triumphed. The next morning, court reconvened with electric tension. William Asher himself was set to testify, and the old man entered the courtroom like a king surveying his domain. At 78, he still radiated the kind of power that came from decades of crushing anyone who opposed him. Anna watched him take the stand, this man who'd orchestrated so much destruction, and felt curiosity. What made someone so consumed with control that they'd destroy lives to maintain it? Catherine Wyatt approached him carefully, like one might approach a coiled snake. Mr. Asher, you were in business with Gary Benjamin for 30 years? Yes. And you arranged his marriage to your daughter? I facilitated a union that would benefit both families. Were you aware that Mr. Benjamin was involved with someone else? William's eyes hardened. I became aware of his indiscretion with the help. The help? Catherine's voice sharpened. You mean Angela Edward, a woman with a master's degree who was working to pay for her mother's cancer treatment. I mean his housekeeper. Mr. Asher, did you threaten to destroy Mr. Benjamin if he didn't end the relationship? I protected my daughter from humiliation. By framing an innocent woman for theft? William's jaw clenched. That was Gary's decision. But you knew about it. You orchestrated it. I did what was necessary. Anna watched this exchange, her judicial mask perfect, but inside she was seeing her mother at 30, being escorted out by security, accused of crimes she didn't commit, pregnant and alone. Her pen moved across the page, taking notes with steady hands while her heart raged. Mr. Asher, did you then spend the next 20 years systematically defrauding Benjamin Enterprises as punishment for Gary's relationship with Angela? That's absurd. Catherine produced document after document, evidence of shell companies, redirected funds, corporate espionage that had slowly bled Gary's company dry. William's face grew redder with each revelation. You destroyed him slowly, Catherine said, death by 1,000 cuts, because he dared to love someone you deemed beneath him. He sullied my daughter, William exploded. He was supposed to marry Sophia, create an empire, not waste himself on Somewhat, Mr. Asher. Anna's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Everyone turned to look at her. Finish your sentence. William looked up at her, and for the first time seemed to really see her. His face went pale. Your Honor, You were about to use a slur, weren't you? About a woman you had falsely accused of theft. A woman whose only crime was loving someone you'd decided belonged to you. Anna's voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel beneath it. This court has heard enough. We'll recess until tomorrow for closing arguments. As the courtroom cleared, Anna saw Gary approach William. She couldn't hear what was said, but she saw William's face contort with rage, saw him spit words at Gary that made him flinch. Then William looked up at Anna, still on the bench, and she saw the moment he understood. The resemblance was too strong, the timing too perfect. He'd realized who she was. That evening, Anna's phone rang, an unknown number. Judge Edward. This is Gary Benjamin. Please don't hang up. Anna's finger hovered over the end button. You have 30 seconds. I know you know. About us. About everything. There is no us, Mr. Benjamin. You're right, I'm sorry. I wanted you to know that I didn't know. About you. Your mother never got the chance to tell me. If I had known, you'd have what? Chosen differently? Left your empire for a baby you never wanted? Yes. The word was immediate, desperate. Anna laughed, but there was no humor in it. Liar. You couldn't even choose my mother when it was just her. A baby would have only made you run faster. You don't know that. I know that when given the choice between love and money, you chose money. When given the choice between truth and lies, you chose lies. When given the choice between courage and cowardice, you chose cowardice. Every time. That's who you are, Mr. Benjamin. That's who you've always been. I've changed. Consequence isn't change. You're facing losses now, so suddenly you want to claim what you threw away. That's not growth. That's desperation. Anna, Judge Edward, and Mr. Benjamin, if you ever contact me outside of official court business again, I'll file harassment charges. Your lawyer can speak for you in court. That's all the voice you get in my life. She hung up, her hands shaking. Angela appeared in her doorway immediately, having heard everything. You okay, baby? He said if he'd known about me, he would have chosen differently. Men like him always say that when it's safe to say it, when the choice is already made and they can play hero in hypotheticals. I told him consequence isn't change. Angela smiled proudly. That's my girl. Now come on, dinner's ready. Catherine's coming over. We're going to eat good food and not talk about Gary Benjamin at all. But of course they did talk about him eventually. Catherine revealed more of what she'd uncovered. Years of William's manipulation, Sophia's complicity, the way they'd isolated Gary from anyone who might have told him the truth about Angela's pregnancy. He was weak, Catherine said, but they were evil. There's a difference. Weakness that enables evil is its own kind of evil, Angela replied. Anna listened to them debate, these two women who'd built their lives on their own terms, and realized something. She didn't need to forgive Gary Benjamin. She didn't need to hate him either. She just needed to judge him fairly, apply the law impartially, and let justice take its course. Tomorrow would bring closing arguments. Soon after, she would render her verdict. And then, regardless of the outcome, she would go on being Judge Anna Edward, daughter of Angela Edward, product of no one's name but her own making. That night, Anna dreamed of scales, perfectly balanced, weighing truth against lies, love against fear, justice against revenge. In her dream, the scales never tipped. They just waited, patient and eternal, for someone brave enough to add the final weight. Tomorrow, she would be that someone. Chapter 6. The letters. Some secrets are buried so deep that when they finally surface, they don't just change the present. They rewrite the entire past. Evelyn Harper had been waiting 25 years for this moment. She stood outside the courthouse at dawn, a worn shoebox tucked under her arm, watching the sunrise paint the sky the same shade of pink it had been the morning Angela Edward was escorted from the Benjamin mansion in tears. Gary arrived early, his face haggard from another sleepless night. He stopped short when he saw her. Evelyn. He hadn't seen his former head housekeeper in over a decade. She'd retired quietly, disappeared into a modest life funded by the generous pension he'd guilt-paid her. "What are you doing here?" "Something I should have done years ago," she said, pressing the box into his hands. "But I was a coward too, Mr. Benjamin. We all were." "What is this?" "The truth. The evidence of what you lost, what we all helped you lose." Gary opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all in Angela's careful script, all addressed to him, all unsent. "She wrote them," Evelyn said, "after you fired her. She'd send them to the house and Ms. Sophia would intercept them. But I kept them, hid them. I told myself I was protecting you, but really I was protecting my job. I'm sorry, Mr. Benjamin. I'm so sorry." The first letter was dated 2 days after Angela's termination. "Gary, I'm pregnant. I tried to tell you that last morning, but you wouldn't listen. Our child deserves better than this. Please, if you ever loved me at all, call me. Let me explain everything. Angela." The second, a week later. "Gary, Sophia told me you know about the baby and don't care. I can't believe that's true. The man who read me poetry, who cried when telling me about your mother's death, who said I made you believe in tomorrow. That man would care. Please, just one conversation. You owe us that much. Angela." The letters grew more desperate, then resigned, then finally accepting. "Gary, I'm 7 months pregnant now. She kicks at night. Yes, she. I'm having a daughter. Your daughter. I've named her Anna after your mother. You told me once that your mother was the only person who ever loved you unconditionally. I promise you our Anna will know that kind of love, even if it only comes from me. I've stopped hoping you'll come. I've stopped waiting for the phone to ring. But I wanted you to know that I don't hate you. I pity you. Because you're going to miss everything. Her first smile, first word, first step. You're going to miss the chance to be the father you never had. This is my last letter. I won't diminish myself by begging anymore, but know this. Anna will be extraordinary. Not because of your name or your money, but because she'll be raised by someone who knows how to love without conditions, how to sacrifice without resentment, how to build beauty from ashes. Goodbye, Gary. I loved who I thought you were. I mourn who you turned out to be. Angela. Gary's hands shook so violently he could barely hold the paper. There were more letters, updates about Anna's first year, her remarkable intelligence, her early words. Then they stopped entirely when Anna was 18 months old. She tried so hard to reach you, Evelyn said, tears streaming down her weathered face. And Miss Sophia, she laughed. She'd burn some of them, keep others as trophies. She said it was better you never knew, that the baby would only have been a complication. You could have told me. Any time in the last 25 years, you could have told me. With what proof? Miss Sophia had me convinced I'd be sued for defamation. And then it was too late. The girl was grown. What good would it have done? Gary looked toward the courthouse, where his daughter would soon sit in judgment. All those years. Angela thought I knew and didn't care. We all failed that woman, Evelyn said. But she didn't fail. Look what she did, Mr. Benjamin. She raised a judge. Your daughter is a judge. She became everything you could have been if you'd been brave enough to choose love. Inside the courthouse, Anna was reviewing final documents when Catherine knocked. Your Honor, there's something happening you should see. Anna followed her to a window overlooking the entrance. Below, Gary stood with an elderly woman, reading something that had him sobbing openly, not caring who saw. That's Evelyn Harper, Catherine said. She was the Benjamins' head housekeeper. She called me last night, said she had evidence she'd been hiding. What kind of evidence? Letters. Your mother's letters to Gary that Sophia intercepted. Proof that Angela tried to tell him about you, that Sophia lied about him knowing. Anna watched her biological father break down completely, watched him fall to his knees on the courthouse steps, clutching papers to his chest. She felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, nothing. It doesn't change anything, Anna said. He still chose to fire her with false accusations. He still chose his fortune over her. The letters just prove my mother tried harder than she should have to redeem someone unredeemable. You're angry. No, Anna said, turning from the window. I'm indifferent, and that's worse for him than anger could ever be. Court reconvened with a different energy. Gary looked destroyed, aged a decade overnight. William Asher sat smugly, believing his decades of revenge were about to culminate in Gary's complete destruction. Sophia was noticeably absent. She'd fled the state after her testimony, unable to face the consequences of her revelations. Catherine Wyatt stood for closing arguments. Your Honor, we've presented clear evidence of a pattern of fraud spanning 20 years. But more than that, we've revealed a web of cruelty, manipulation, and destruction that goes back even further. William Asher didn't just defraud Benjamin Enterprises. He orchestrated the destruction of lives. He and his daughter conspired to frame an innocent woman for theft, to separate a father from his child, to build their empire on a foundation of lies. She paused, looking directly at William. But here's the beautiful irony. The woman they tried to destroy didn't break. Angela Edward raised a daughter who would become the youngest judge in state history, a woman of such integrity that she sits on this bench today, presiding over the collapse of everything William Asher built through cruelty. That's not just justice, Your Honor. That's poetry. James Harrison stood for the defense, but his heart wasn't in it. The evidence was overwhelming, and everyone knew it. He made perfunctory arguments about statute of limitations, about proof of intent, but even he seemed to know it was over. Anna let him finish, then called for a brief recess before rendering her verdict. In her chambers, she found her mother waiting. "You shouldn't be here," Anna said. "I know. I just needed to tell you something before you do this." Angela took her daughter's hands. Whatever you decide, make sure it's based on law, not on our history. Don't give them the satisfaction of saying you were biased. Mom, the evidence is overwhelming, I know, but baby, you're about to destroy him. Gary, I mean, and I need you to know that it's okay if part of you doesn't want to. He's your biological father. If you feel anything, I don't, Anna said firmly. Looking at him is like looking at a stranger who happens to share my DNA. You're my parent. You're the one who earned that title. He's just genetics. Angela pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you, not for this verdict, whatever it is, but for who you are, for staying true to yourself despite everything. When court reconvened, Anna delivered her verdict with a clear, steady voice. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The evidence of fraud is clear, systematic, and extensive. William Asher engaged in a 20-year campaign of corporate sabotage that violated multiple federal statutes. She looked at William, who'd gone pale. But more than that, this case has revealed a pattern of behavior that goes beyond financial crimes. It has exposed the weaponization of wealth and power to destroy lives deemed inconvenient. While those actions fall outside the scope of this particular case, they speak to character, to intent, to the malicious nature of the fraudulent actions. As for damages, Anna continued, her eyes finding Gary. Benjamin Enterprises is awarded full restitution for proven losses, totaling $87 million. Additionally, punitive damages of $50 million are awarded, given the malicious and deliberate nature of the fraud. William Asher collapsed in his chair. His empire, built on cruelty and manipulation, had just crumbled. Furthermore, Anna said, this court is referring evidence of additional crimes to the district attorney's office, including conspiracy to commit fraud, evidence tampering, and potential blackmail. Mr. Asher, you may have thought yourself untouchable, but justice has a way of finding everyone eventually. She raised her gavel. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. As the courtroom erupted in chaos, reporters rushing to file stories, William being escorted out by attorneys already discussing criminal charges, Gary standing frozen in disbelief, Anna walked calmly to her chambers. She didn't see Gary try to follow her, didn't see security stop him, didn't hear him calling, "Anna, please, just one moment." She'd already given him more consideration than he'd ever given her mother. In her chambers, she found Catherine and her mother waiting with champagne. "You did it," Catherine said. "You brought down William Asher. The evidence brought him down. I just applied the law." "With perfect impartiality," Angela added proudly. "No one can say you were anything but fair." Anna accepted a glass of champagne but didn't drink. "It's not over. Gary will try to contact me now. He'll want to suddenly be my father." "Let him want," Angela said. "Wanting isn't getting. You owe him nothing." That evening, Anna stood in her apartment, looking out at the city lights. Her phone had rung 17 times, all calls from Gary Benjamin or his representatives. She'd blocked them all. Tomorrow, the news would break. The business world would learn about the fraud, the conspiracy, the decades of lies. But they'd also learn about her, the secret daughter who'd presided over it all. She'd weather that storm the way her mother had taught her, with dignity, with strength, with the knowledge that she'd done nothing wrong. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Saw the news is already breaking. Remember, you are not his story. You are your own. Love you." Anna smiled, typing back, "Love you too. Enough for two people, remember?" Always. Chapter 7. Anna's Discovery. The truth about identity is that it's not found in DNA or bloodlines, but in the choices we make when faced with who we really are. Anna Edward woke to her phone exploding with notifications. The story had broken overnight. Secret daughter presides over father's corporate case. Judge Edward, the hidden Benjamin heir. From housekeeper's daughter to judgment seat, the Anna Edward story. She turned off her phone without reading any of them. The media could speculate all they wanted. She had work to do. But when she arrived at the courthouse, she found Gary Benjamin waiting by her chambers, looking like he'd aged another decade overnight. James Harrison stood beside him, clearly uncomfortable. "Mr. Benjamin, you cannot be here," Anna said coolly. "If you have legal matters to discuss, file them through proper channels." "Please," Gary said, his voice breaking, "just 5 minutes, not as plaintiff and judge, as father and daughter." Anna laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Father? You think that word applies to you? Let me explain something, Mr. Benjamin. A father is there for first steps and first words. A father teaches you to ride a bike and checks for monsters under the bed. A father shows up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You're not my father. You're just the man who contributed genetic material." "I didn't know." "Stop." Anna's voice could have frozen fire. "You didn't know about me. Fine. But you knew you were falsely accusing my mother of theft. You knew you were choosing your merger over her love. You knew, and you chose anyway. Every consequence that followed, including me growing up without you, stems from that choice." "The letters," Gary said desperately. "I never saw them. Sophia hid them. If I'd known..." "You'd have what? Suddenly grown a spine? Suddenly chosen love over money?" Anna shook her head. "Mr. Benjamin, you couldn't even stand up for my mother when she was standing right in front of you. Letters wouldn't have changed that." James Harrison cleared his throat. "Your Honor, Mr. Benjamin wishes to establish a trust fund for you." Anna's eyes flashed dangerously. "If you finish that sentence, Mr. Harrison, I'll hold you in contempt." "But I don't want his money. I don't want his name. I don't want his sudden interest, now that I'm successful enough to be worth claiming." She looked directly at Gary. "My mother raised me on a court reporter's salary. Every success I've had, every achievement was built on her sacrifices, not your wealth. I won't let you buy your way into my story now." Gary pulled out a photograph from his wallet, old, worn, carefully preserved. It was Angela, young and radiant, laughing at something off camera. "I've carried this for 25 years, he said quietly. "Hidden it, protected it, looked at it every day, and wondered what if." "Then you're even more pathetic than I thought," Anna said. "You had the real thing and threw it away, then kept a photo to torture yourself with. That's not love, Mr. Benjamin. That's self-indulgent guilt." She turned to walk away, but Gary's next words stopped her. "Your mother was the only person who ever saw me as more than my name or my money. She made me believe I could be better than what I was raised to be. And I failed her. I failed you. I failed myself. But I need you to know that not a day has passed that I haven't regretted it." Anna turned back slowly. "Regret is cheap, Mr. Benjamin. It costs nothing and changes nothing. You want to know the difference between you and my mother? When life got hard, she got stronger. When you got scared, you got cruel. That's who you are at your core." "What can I do?" Gary asked desperately. "Tell me what I can do to make this right." "Nothing. There's nothing you can do because there's nothing to be done. I'm not a problem to be solved or a guilt to be absolved. I'm a person who lived an entire life without you, and that life is complete. I don't need you to make anything right, because my mother already did that. She made sure I never felt the lack of you." Angela appeared then, having heard the raised voices. She stood beside her daughter, not touching her but present, solid, unmovable. "Angela," Gary breathed, looking at her like she was a ghost. "Mr. Benjamin," Angela replied, her voice formal, "you need to leave. My daughter has work to do." "Our daughter," Gary said. Angela's eyes hardened. "Number my daughter. You gave up any claim to her the day you chose your empire over us. Anna is mine, my sacrifice, my triumph, my joy. You're just a cautionary tale I never had to tell her because she learned about choosing love over fear by watching me do it every single day." I loved you, Gary said to Angela, tears streaming down his face. No, Angela said simply. You loved the idea of me. You loved how I made you feel. But love, real love, requires courage you never had. It requires choosing the person over everything else. You chose everything else over us. Security arrived then, having been called by Anna's clerk. As they escorted Gary away, he called back, I'm establishing a foundation. The Angela Edward Foundation for Single Mothers Pursuing Education. $50 million. Angela and Anna exchanged glances. Do what you want with your money, Angela called back, but don't think it buys you anything with us. After he was gone, Anna and Angela stood in silence for a moment. You okay, baby? Angela asked. I'm perfect, Anna said. Because I had you, I never needed him. Part of you must wonder, no, Anna said firmly. I don't wonder what if. I don't imagine some alternate life where he chose us. Because in that life, I might have grown up softer, less driven, less aware of how the world really works. His absence shaped me just as much as your presence did. I became who I am not, in spite of him abandoning us, but because of it. And I like who I am. That afternoon, Anna received a package. Inside was a file, Gary's complete financial records, evidence of every payment he'd tried to make over the years to find them, private investigators hired and called off, lawyers consulted and dismissed. And a letter, not in Gary's handwriting, but in Evelyn Harper's. Your Honor, I know you don't want to hear from or about Mr. Benjamin, but I feel you should know the whole truth. He did try to find you. For 3 years after your mother left, he searched. But Ms. Sophia and Mr. William always found ways to stop him. False leads, paid-off investigators, threats to destroy not just his business, but Angela's life if he persisted. He was weak, yes. He was a coward, absolutely. But he wasn't indifferent. He suffered every day for his choice. That doesn't excuse anything, but I thought you should know. What your mother did, raising you alone, making you who you are, that's the real victory. But Mr. Benjamin's suffering was real too. He lost the only real love he ever had and spent 25 years knowing it was his own fault. Forgiveness isn't required, but understanding the full truth might bring peace. Respectfully, Evelyn Harper. Anna read the letter twice, then shredded it. Understanding didn't change anything. Gary had suffered. Good. He'd lost everything that mattered. That was justice. That evening, she had dinner with her mother and Catherine. They didn't talk about Gary or the case or the media frenzy. They talked about Catherine's daughter starting college, about Angela's promotion to senior court reporter, about normal things that made up a life. You know he's really doing it, Catherine mentioned casually. The foundation, $50 million for single mothers in school, full rides to any university, childcare included, living expenses covered. Good for him, Angela said without emotion. Maybe some good will come from his guilt. Mom, Anna said suddenly, did you ever regret it? Not telling me earlier? Angela considered this. I regret that you had to find out this way, but tell you earlier. Number you were a child who deserved to believe you were wanted, loved, chosen. Telling you that your father abandoned us before you were born, what good would that have done? It would have been the truth. Truth without context is cruelty. You needed to be strong enough to handle it, successful enough not to be defined by it. Now you are. The next morning brought fresh chaos. William Asher had been arrested on federal fraud charges. Sophia had been subpoenaed. And Gary Benjamin, in a move that shocked everyone, had liquidated half his remaining assets to fund not just the Angela Edward Foundation but also a legal aid clinic for wrongly accused domestic workers. He's trying to buy redemption, Catherine observed, reading the news to Anna and Angela. Let him, Angela said. If his guilt helps other women avoid what I went through, then something good comes from it. But it doesn't change what he did. Anna's phone rang. It was the governor. Judge Edward, I'm calling to assure you that your position is secure. There have been some calls for your recusal from future cases involving corporate matters, but I want you to know you have my full support. You handled an impossible situation with perfect integrity. Thank you, Governor. There's more. I'm recommending you for the federal bench. Youngest federal judge in history has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Anna's breath caught. Sir, Think about it. You've proven you can handle pressure, maintain impartiality despite personal involvement, and deliver justice without favor. That's what we need more of. After the call, Anna told her mother about the offer. Angela's eyes filled with tears. Federal judge, my baby, a federal judge. It's just a recommendation. You'll get it, Angela said firmly, because you're brilliant and fair and everything this country needs in its judiciary. None of this would have happened without you. No, Angela corrected. It happened because of you. I just made sure you had the chance to become who you were meant to be. That night, Anna stood before her bathroom mirror, studying her reflection. She could see him there, in her jawline, her eyes, the way she tilted her head when thinking. But she could see her mother too, in her smile, her strength, the way she carried herself with dignity. She was both of them, and neither of them. She was Anna Edward, Judge Anna Edward, and that was enough, more than enough. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new opportunities to deliver justice, and she would meet them all with the strength her mother had given her and the cautionary tale her father had become. She was not his daughter. She was Angela's daughter. And that made all the difference. Chapter 8. Mother's Strength. Angela Edward had never believed in revenge, but she'd always believed in justice, and sometimes the universe delivered both wrapped in the same package. She stood in her living room, looking at the letter that had just arrived by courier. It was from Switzerland, from a bank she'd never heard of, informing her that an account in her name had been discovered with 25 years of accrued interest. The original deposit had been $50,000, the exact amount of Gary's severance check that she'd torn up and thrown away that terrible day. But she hadn't thrown it away, apparently. She'd cashed it, or someone had cashed it for her, deposited it, let it grow. With compound interest over 25 years, it was now worth nearly $300,000. The door opened, and Anna walked in, still in her judicial robes, looking exhausted but triumphant. The federal nomination had been confirmed that morning. At 25, she would be the youngest federal judge in American history. "Mom, what's wrong?" Angela handed her the letter. Anna read it, her legal mind immediately understanding the implications. He set this up. Gary, he must have had someone cash the check, invest it. For 25 years. "Mom, this is his way of trying to provide for us retroactively." Angela took the letter back, walked to the fireplace, and held it over the flames. "Mom, no. That's your money." "No," Angela said firmly. "It's guilt money, blood money. I don't want it." $300,000 is nothing compared to what we built without him. Angela dropped the letter in the flames, watching it burn. "Baby, I need you to understand something. We don't need his money. We never did. We needed strength, and we had that. We needed love, and we had that. We needed each other, and we had that. Money was just something we earned along the way." Anna sat down hard. "Mom, you could retire with that money." "I don't want to retire. I love my job. I love being in the courtroom, recording justice being served. I love knowing that my work ensures the truth is preserved accurately." Angela sat beside her daughter. "And I love that I earned every penny I have through my own work, not through his guilt. You're the strongest person I know." "No, baby, I'm just a mother, and mothers do impossible things for their children every day." The doorbell rang. Anna opened it to find a young woman, perhaps 22, with a baby in her arms and desperation in her eyes. Is this... Are you Angela Edward? I am, Angela said, coming to the door. I'm Lily Carpenter. I was just awarded a scholarship from your foundation, the Angela Edward Foundation. They said you might want to meet the first recipient. Angela's hand went to her heart. I don't have a foundation. It was established by Gary Benjamin, Lily explained. But it's in your name. Full scholarship to law school, childcare, living expenses, everything. They said you raised a daughter alone who became a judge, and this foundation is to help other women do the same. Angela looked at Anna, who shrugged. He said he was doing it. I didn't think he'd really... Come in, Angela said to Lily. Tell me your story. Lily's story was heartbreakingly familiar. An affair with her married boss, a pregnancy, termination when she refused to take care of it, false accusations of embezzlement to prevent her from getting another job in her field. She'd been working 3 minimum-wage jobs to support her son, studying for the LSAT in whatever minutes she could steal. I'd given up on law school, Lily said, tears streaming down her face. Then I got the call about the scholarship. They said there would be 50 women like me chosen every year, all expenses paid, for as long as the money lasts. $50 million, Anna said quietly. That's what he pledged. That's hundreds of women over the years, Angela calculated. Hundreds of mothers who won't have to choose between their dreams and their children. After Lily left, promising to stay in touch, Angela stood at her window, looking out at the city. It doesn't change what he did, she said. No, Anna agreed. But maybe some good can come from it. Those women deserve that money. They deserve those chances. But it bothers you that it's in your name. Angela turned to her daughter. It bothers me that he thinks he can retroactively participate in our story, like he can insert himself into our narrative through money. Or maybe, Anna said carefully, he's trying to ensure other women don't go through what you did. Maybe it's not about inserting himself into our story, but about changing the story for others. Angela considered this. When did you become so wise? I had a good teacher. The next day, Angela did something she hadn't done in 25 years. She went to Gary Benjamin's office. He nearly fell out of his chair when his secretary announced her. Angela. He stood, looking like he'd seen a ghost. I never expected... Sit down, Gary. Her voice was calm, controlled. I'm here about the foundation. If you want me to change the name... No. Keep it in my name. Those women should know that someone who survived what they're going through believes in them. She sat across from him, this man she'd once loved, and felt nothing. He was older, grayer, diminished. The Golden Prince had become a hollow king. But I have conditions. Anything. You don't publicize this. No press releases about your generosity. No photos of you with recipients. This isn't about you. Agreed. Anna and I will select the recipients. We know what to look for, what kind of strength it takes to survive single motherhood while pursuing dreams. Of course. And you never contact the recipients directly, ever. This isn't a way for you to build relationships or network. This is penance, Gary. Treat it as such. I understand. They sat in silence for a moment. She's remarkable, Gary said finally. Anna, what you did, raising her alone. Stop, Angela held up her hand. You don't get to compliment my parenting. You don't get to acknowledge what I did. You abdicated that right 25 years ago. I know. I'm sorry, I don't want your apologies. I want you to understand something. Angela leaned forward. Anna and I succeeded, not despite you abandoning us, but because of it. Your absence taught her that she couldn't rely on anyone but herself and me. Your cowardice taught her courage. Your choosing money over love taught her what really matters. In trying to erase us, you actually shaped us into something stronger than we ever could have been with you." Gary's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I see that. It's my greatest regret and your greatest triumph." "Good. Hold on to that regret. Let it shape whatever years you have left. Maybe you'll finally become the man you could have been." Angela stood to leave, then turned back. "The woman who came to see us yesterday, Lily. Her son's name is James. He's 2 years old, exactly the age Anna was when I started working 3 jobs. When I look at her, I see myself 23 years ago. Make sure she gets everything she needs, not just tuition, but therapy, medical care, tutoring support. The full package. I will. And Gary, this doesn't make us even. Nothing could. But it's a start at balancing the scales you tipped so badly." She left without looking back, without seeing him break down at his desk. She'd said what she needed to say. That evening, Anna was waiting with dinner and wine. "You went to see him. How did you know?" "Catherine saw you leaving his building." Anna studied her mother. "How do you feel?" "Free," Angela said, and meant it. "For 25 years I've carried anger I didn't even know I had. Today I let it go. Not for him, but for me. And the foundation. We'll help hundreds of women avoid our struggle. That's worth swallowing my pride." They ate in comfortable silence. Then Anna said, "The federal bench means I'll be trying bigger cases. Corporate fraud, major criminals, cases that make headlines. You'll be brilliant. I'll need someone I trust to be my court reporter for important trials." Angela looked up. "Anna, the federal court is looking for a senior court reporter. The pay is double what you make now. The benefits are incredible, and we'd be together making justice happen. Nepotism is when unqualified people get positions because of relationships. You're the most qualified court reporter in the state. You've won awards for accuracy. This isn't nepotism, it's recognition of excellence." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "We'd be a team. We've always been a team. This just makes it official." Mother and daughter sat together, planning their future in the federal courthouse. 2 women who'd risen from abandonment to achievement, from poverty to power, from heartbreak to wholeness. Somewhere across the city, Gary Benjamin sat alone in his empty mansion, finally understanding that his greatest punishment wasn't losing his fortune or his reputation. It was seeing what he could have been part of if he'd just been brave enough to choose love. The scales of justice had finally balanced, not through revenge, but through redemption, not through his destruction, but through their elevation. Angela Edward had won not by destroying the man who'd wronged her, but by rising so far above him that he became irrelevant to her story. That was the ultimate victory. That was true strength. Chapter 9. The Truth Emerges. William Asher's criminal trial began on a Tuesday that felt like Judgment Day, with storm clouds gathering over the courthouse like harbingers of justice, delayed but not denied. Anna Edward, now Federal Judge Edward, would not be presiding. This was a criminal matter outside her jurisdiction, but she sat in the gallery beside her mother, there to witness the complete unraveling of the man who'd orchestrated so much destruction. The prosecutor, a pit bull named David Hunter, had built an airtight case. 20 years of fraud, conspiracy, blackmail, and corporate espionage, all meticulously documented. But the real bombshell came when he announced his star witness. The prosecution calls Sophia Asher. Gary, sitting across the gallery, went rigid. Sophia had been in hiding since her testimony in the civil trial, but here she was, looking gaunt and haunted, ready to bury her father completely. "Ms. Asher," Hunter began, "you've been granted immunity in exchange for your testimony. Please tell the court about your father's actions regarding Gary Benjamin and Angela Edward." Sophia's voice was steady but hollow. My father orchestrated everything. When he discovered Gary's relationship with Angela, he didn't just threaten the merger, he threatened to destroy Angela completely. He had connections everywhere, judges, prosecutors, immigration officials. He said he'd have her deported, even though she was a citizen. He'd have her arrested on false charges. He'd make sure she never worked again. And the theft accusation was my father's idea. He made Gary choose: accuse Angela of theft and fire her, or watch her be destroyed completely. He said at least with the theft accusation and severance, she could start over somewhere else. Anna felt her mother's hand tighten in hers. But that wasn't the end, was it? Hunter continued. When my father learned Angela was pregnant, he paid people to ensure Gary never found out. Intercepted letters, redirected private investigators, even had Angela's new address hidden from public records. Why? Sophia looked directly at Gary for the first time. Because a mixed-race grandchild would have been, in his words, an abomination to the family legacy. He couldn't stand the thought of Benjamin blood mixed with what he called inferior stock. The courtroom gasped. Angela remained perfectly still, but Anna could feel her trembling with rage. Ms. Asher, did your father continue his vendetta after your marriage to Gary? Yes. He systematically destroyed every business deal Gary tried to make. He sabotaged partnerships, stole clients, had people spy on Gary's operations. He wanted Gary to suffer slowly for contaminating me with his affair, even though the affair happened before our marriage. And you knew about all of this? I knew, and I participated. I intercepted Angela's letters. I lied to her about Gary knowing about the pregnancy. I helped my father destroy Gary's business piece by piece. Sophia's voice broke. I was young and stupid and so angry that Gary had loved someone else. I wanted them both to suffer. What changed? Why are you testifying now? Sophia looked at Anna in the gallery. Because I saw her, Judge Edward. I saw what Angela created despite everything we did to destroy her. I saw strength and dignity and brilliance that we tried to snuff out but only made stronger. And I realized that we were the villains in this story. My father and I, we were the monsters. William Asher's attorney tried to cross-examine, but Sophia had receipts, emails, recorded conversations, financial documents showing the systematic destruction of Benjamin Enterprises. By the time she was done, William looked like a man watching his own execution. During a recess, Anna found herself face to face with Sophia in the bathroom. I'm sorry, Sophia said. I know that means nothing, but I'm sorry. Anna looked at this woman who'd helped steal her father before she was even born. You're right. It means nothing. But thank you for finally telling the truth. Your mother is an extraordinary woman. Yes, she is. No thanks to you. Sophia flinched. I have to live with what I did. Every day, I wake up knowing I helped destroy love because I was jealous of it. That's my punishment. Good, Anna said, and walked out. The trial continued for 3 more days. More witnesses, more evidence, more revelations of William Asher's cruelty and corruption. But the moment that broke the case wide open came when Evelyn Harper took the stand. I have something that hasn't been submitted as evidence, she said, pulling out a small recorder. 25 years ago, I recorded a conversation between Mr. Asher and Ms. Sophia. I was afraid for my job, afraid of being fired, so I kept it as insurance. The prosecutor played the recording. William's voice, younger but unmistakable, filled the courtroom. That woman is nothing. Less than nothing. But she's carrying Benjamin blood, and that cannot be allowed. We'll bury her so deep she'll never surface. And if she tries to contact Gary, we'll have her arrested. I have judges who owe me favors. She'll disappear into the system. Sophia's voice responded, What about the baby? What baby? There is no baby. There's only a problem that needs to be eliminated. And if Gary ever finds out, we'll make sure he thinks the child isn't his. We'll destroy her reputation so thoroughly he'll believe she was with half the city." Angela stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Anna followed, finding her mother in the hallway, shaking with rage. 25 years, Angela whispered. 25 years I believed Gary just didn't care. But they made sure he couldn't care. They stole his choice, just like they stole mine. "It doesn't excuse what he did," Anna reminded her. "No, but it explains it. He was weak, but they were evil. There's a difference." They returned to the courtroom for closing arguments. The prosecutor painted William Asher as a racist, classist monster who destroyed lives to maintain his idea of genetic purity. The defense tried to argue that it was all business, nothing personal, but the recording had demolished that claim. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. William Asher, at 78, was facing 20 years in federal prison. He'd die behind bars. As court officers led William away, he passed by Angela and Anna. He stopped, his eyes meeting Angela's. "You won," he said bitterly. "No," Angela replied with dignity. "I survived. There's a difference." "Your daughter—" "My daughter," Angela interrupted, "is everything you feared she would be. Brilliant, powerful, and absolutely unstoppable. Your worst nightmare came true, William. A mixed-race woman sits in judgment, delivering the justice you thought your money could buy you out of." William was led away, but not before Anna added, "Enjoy prison, Mr. Asher. I hear they don't care much about genetic purity there." Outside the courthouse, the media was in a frenzy. Gary tried to approach Angela and Anna, but was blocked by reporters. In the chaos, Anna heard him shout, "I'm sorry. Angela, I'm so sorry. If I'd known—" Angela turned, and for a moment their eyes met across 25 years of pain. "I know," she said, just loud enough for him to hear. "I know you're sorry, but sorry doesn't give us back those years. Sorry doesn't give Anna back her childhood with a father. Sorry is just a word, Gary. We needed action, and you chose inaction." That evening, Angela and Anna sat in Anna's new federal chambers, looking out at the city lights. "How do you feel?" Anna asked. "Vindicated, but not satisfied. William going to prison doesn't undo the past. But the foundation will help change the future. Lily called today. She got a perfect score on her first law school exam." Angela smiled. "Good, that's good. Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think you could ever forgive Gary?" "Not forget, but forgive." Angela considered this. "I forgave him years ago, baby. Not for him, but for me. Carrying that anger was too heavy. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean he gets to be part of our lives. It just means I don't let his choices poison my days anymore. I think I understand that now." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Angela said, "Federal Judge Edward has a nice ring to it." "Senior federal court reporter Edward sounds pretty good too." They smiled at each other, two women who'd built an empire of justice from the ashes of abandonment, who'd turned pain into power, who'd proven that love wasn't about who stayed, but about who fought to rise, despite who left. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new chances to deliver justice. But tonight, they celebrated the truth finally emerging, not to redeem the past, but to free them from it. The truth hadn't set Gary free, it had set them free. Free from wondering, free from what-ifs, free from the shadow of his absence. They were Angela and Anna Edward, mother and daughter, survivors and thrivers, and they were finally, completely, absolutely free. Chapter 10. Justice Served. 25 years of waiting had led to this moment, as Anna Edward stood in her federal chambers, holding a document that would change everything. The trust documentation for the Angela Edward Foundation had arrived for her review and approval as co-trustee. but buried in the appendices was something that stopped her cold. A full confession from Gary Benjamin, notarized and witnessed, admitting to falsely accusing Angela of theft 25 years ago. Anna called her mother immediately. He confessed, in writing, to everything. Angela was silent for a long moment. What does that mean? It means you can file charges. False imprisonment, defamation, fraud. The statute of limitations doesn't apply because he's admitting to an ongoing conspiracy to conceal a crime. You could destroy him completely. After all this time? Justice has no expiration date, Mom. Angela arrived at Anna's chambers within the hour. She read the confession slowly, her face unreadable. Gary had detailed everything. The false accusation, the planted jewelry, his full knowledge of Angela's innocence. He'd also included bank records showing he'd tried to pay her through hidden channels over the years, all of which had been returned or redirected by William's interference. He's giving you the weapon to destroy him, Anna observed. Or he's finally taking responsibility, Angela said quietly. What do you want to do? Angela stood at the window, looking out at the city where she'd rebuilt her life. For 25 years, I wanted revenge. I wanted him to hurt like I hurt. But now I have you. You're my revenge, baby. You're my justice. You sitting on that bench, delivering fairness to people who need it. That's worth more than any lawsuit could give me. But he destroyed your reputation, and I rebuilt it. I became senior federal court reporter Angela Edward, mother of the youngest federal judge in history. His confession doesn't change that. It doesn't make it more true. Anna understood. Her mother had won not by destroying Gary, but by becoming someone who didn't need to destroy him. That afternoon, they attended the first graduation ceremony for the Angela Edward Foundation scholars. 50 women walked across the stage, each carrying a child or a photo of children, each having completed their first year of education that would have been impossible without support. Gary was there, sitting in the back, trying to be invisible, but when Lily Carpenter gave the recipient speech, she called him out. "Mr. Benjamin, would you please stand?" He stood reluctantly. This man made a mistake 25 years ago that destroyed a family, but he's trying to make amends by ensuring no other woman goes through what Angela Edward went through. That doesn't erase the past, but it changes the future. And for that, we're grateful. The women applauded politely. Gary sat down quickly, his face red. After the ceremony, Angela approached him. Anna watched from a distance as her parents, could she even call them that, spoke for the first time in 25 years without lawyers or judges present. "The confession," Angela said simply. "You deserve the ability to choose," Gary replied. "Whether to file charges or not, it should be your choice. I took that from you once. I won't do it again. I'm not going to file charges." Gary's shoulders sagged with relief, then straightened with confusion. "Why?" "Because I've moved on. Because watching you live with your regret is punishment enough. Because those 50 women need the foundation to continue, and your going to prison would end it." "Angela, Stop. This isn't forgiveness, Gary. This isn't us being okay. This is me choosing to focus on the future instead of the past. This is me choosing those women's dreams over your nightmare." She started to walk away, then turned back. "But know this, Anna knows everything now. Every lie, every betrayal, every choice you made. And she became extraordinary anyway. That's my victory. She didn't need you to become amazing. She just needed me." Anna joined her mother, and together they faced Gary one last time. "Mr. Benjamin," Anna said formally, "the foundation is a good thing. Continue it, expand it, make it your life's work, not for us, but for them, and maybe, After helping hundreds of women achieve their dreams despite men like you, maybe then you'll have balanced the scales. Anna, I want you to know, I know everything I need to know. You're a man who chose wrong and is trying to choose right now. That's commendable, but it doesn't make you my father. That title was earned by someone else. By the woman who stood beside me at every graduation, every achievement, every moment that mattered. I understand. Do you? Do you understand that my mother worked 18-hour days for 20 years to give me opportunities? Do you understand that she went without meals so I could have textbooks? Do you understand that she gave up her own dreams so I could achieve mine? Gary's eyes filled with tears. Number, I can't understand that kind of sacrifice. Exactly, you can't, because that kind of love requires a strength you never had. Angela took her daughter's hand. Come on, baby, we have that dinner with Catherine. As they walked away, Gary called out one last time, "Thank you, for not filing charges, for letting the foundation continue." Angela turned. "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Lily and her son James, for Maria and her twin daughters, for every woman who needs what I needed and couldn't find. Your guilt is giving them wings. That's the only good that can come from what you did." The next day, the news broke. William Asher had died in federal prison, a heart attack in his cell. At his funeral, only Sophia attended. She'd lost everything, her inheritance given to Gary as restitution, her reputation destroyed, her father dead in disgrace. She appeared one last time at Anna's chambers. "I wanted you to know I'm leaving the country," Sophia said, "starting over somewhere where the Asher name means nothing. Why tell me? Because I need you to know that you won, completely. My father is dead, I'm in exile, and you're a federal judge. The mixed-race baby he tried to prevent from existing is now more powerful than he ever was. This isn't about winning, isn't it? Your mother raised you to be exceptional as the ultimate revenge. And it worked." Anna considered this. Number. My mother raised me to be exceptional because she loved me. The fact that it also serves as justice is just a bonus. After Sophia left, Anna found her mother in the courtroom, preparing for the day's session. "It's over," Anna said. "William's dead, Sophia's gone, Gary's trying to atone, it's all over." Angela looked up at her daughter, her brilliant, beautiful daughter who'd become everything she'd dreamed and more. "No, baby, it's not over. It's just beginning. Every woman who graduates from that foundation, every fair verdict you deliver, every life we change, that's our story continuing. We don't end with their downfall. We rise with our own success." That evening, they stood together on the courthouse steps where it had all begun months ago. The same steps where Gary had first seen Anna and realized who she was. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if he'd chosen differently?" Anna asked. Number. "Because if he'd chosen differently, you might have been different. And you, my darling girl, are perfect exactly as you are." A young woman approached them, another foundation recipient, holding acceptance letters to 3 law schools. "Miss Edward, Judge Edward, I just wanted to thank you, both of you, for showing us it's possible." As she walked away, Angela smiled. "That's our legacy, Anna. Not his abandonment, but their achievement. Not his failure, but their success." Anna looked at her mother, the woman who'd taken abandonment and alchemized it into achievement, who'd turned betrayal into brilliance, who'd raised a judge while working 3 jobs. "I love you, Mom, more than any words could say." "I love you too, baby. Enough for 2 people, remember? More than enough. Enough for the whole world." As the sun set over the courthouse, mother and daughter walked home together, their shadows long and strong on the pavement. Behind them, the scales of justice gleamed in the fading light, perfectly balanced at last. Gary Benjamin had lost everything that mattered 25 years ago. Angela Edward had gained everything that mattered in the same moment. And Anna Edward had become the living proof that love could triumph over abandonment, that strength could emerge from struggle, that justice, real justice, was not about revenge, but about rising so high that those who wronged you became nothing more than footnotes in your success story. The verdict was in, the sentence was served. Justice, at long last, was complete.